Chapter 92, Dangerous Dragon Martial Temple. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Ziqian did not leave. Instead, she stood shoulder to shoulder with Zhang Yuochen holding her ancient sword in her arms, wearing the phoenix-carved spatial ring. She gave Zhang Yuochen a stare and said, "If need be, you can stay at my place tonight." Zhang Yuochen replied. Ziqian's face turned red but her eyes turned cold and said, "What are you thinking? I was only worried you would get both your legs broken and be thrown out of Dragon Martial Temple." Zhang Yuochen laughed and said, "It's fine. Although Dragon Martial Temple is a dangerous place, your room may not be safe either. What if you chop off my head while I fall asleep, and sell it on the black market the next morning for 150,000 silver coins as reward? That would be unfair." Ziqian's gaze became even colder. She wished she could cut off Zhang Yuochen's head and kick it like a ball. She just wanted to save him but ended up being misunderstood. But why should I help him? She was here to kill him. She was a killer. So why would she want to save the person she was sent to assassinate? Ziqian went deep into a dilemma. Her fists unconsciously tightened and her heart pounded. She realized she was a little reluctant to kill Zhang Yuochen now. This was not a good feeling. As a person who makes a living killing people but is now unable to kill, she was in dire straits. Zhang Yuochen saw Ziqian's face paled and thought his words had hurt her, so he laughed and said, "I was just making a joke. Don't take it to heart. How about I stay at your place tonight and we can also split up the practice resources we got in Omen Ridge?" "No. Why do you think you can just enter my dormitory like that?" Ziqian's attitude took a U-turn and rejected Zhang Yuochen coldly. She turned and left, but added again, "Next time you should watch out when you leave your room because I could assassinate you at any time." Zhang Yuochen was briefly stunned. She stared at Ziqian's retreating figure and said, "Indeed it is hard to understand a woman." She changed her mind so quickly. Zhang Yuochen shook his head lightly and walked towards Dragon Martial Temple. Even though it was the dangerous place, Zhang Yuochen would still go try his luck. As a warrior, without this courage, he could only achieve little in the future. Dragon Martial Temple was at the center of Western Campus. There are large mountains to the east and west with steep cliffs. It was extremely dangerous. It had to be said that the Martial Market Bank was indeed rich and powerful. It was only the students' dormitory that was like a palace, showing a feeling of grandeur. Seen from afar, the 3 main halls and 8 side halls were arranged in a mysterious way like a tactical formation. By the time Zhang Yuochen made it to Dragon Martial Temple, night had fallen. Not far away, external students of the school could be seen. They were all looking in the direction of Dragon Martial Temple. "He's coming, he's coming, the first-ranked new student is coming. He's the one who passed the second obstacle on the 3rd level. Zhang Yuochen." "Does anyone want to make a bet on whether he will be beaten worse than Yachi Tankeng?" "For sure. Those female devils specifically beat up prodigies. The more talented you are, the harder they beat you. I think they won't be just breaking his legs, and they might even break his hands. Wait and see. It won't take 2 hours and he'll be thrown out for sure." Liu Chengfeng, with the new students from Yunwu Commandery, also rushed to the outside of Dragon Martial Temple. They stared at Zhang Yuochen in pity. Liu Chengfeng said, "When the 9th prince is thrown out, you go pick him up. I'll have medicine ready." I exchanged for some high-grade muscles and bones regenerating ointment. The new students standing beside him nodded their heads, all watching Zhang Yuochen stand outside Dragon Martial Temple. They couldn't stop sighting and only hoped that Zhang Yuochen could keep his life. Zhang Yuochen's ears were very sensitive and could hear everything the crowd said. However, he still pushed open the front doors of Dragon Martial Temple and walked inside. Indeed, the spiritual chi is very strong. Walking into Dragon Martial Temple, Zhang Yuochen could feel the surge of spiritual chi from all sides. It was at least twice as concentrated as it was outside. Practicing inside Dragon Martial Temple would definitely be faster than practicing outside. Below Zhang Yuochen's feet was an enormous white stone square about 200 meters long. In the distance, there was a grand main hall. On the roof of the hall, there was calligraphy writing with the words Dragon Martial Temple. Behind Dragon Martial Temple, there were 2 other palaces named Observatory Palace and Divine Power Palace. Around the 3 main halls, there were 8 side halls called Heaven Number 1, Heaven Number 2, Earth number 1, Earth number 2, Black number 1, Black number 2, Yellow number 1, and Yellow number 2 respectively. The students who may enter Dragon Marshal Temple are all carefully nurtured students of the school. Even their living area is not the usual. Zhang Yuochen walked towards Yellow number 1 and fitted the bronze key into the lock. After opening the door, he walked straight in. Ever since he entered Dragon Marshal Temple, Zhang Yuochen had been very alert. He had even sent out his space domain. Walking into Yellow number 1, Zhang Yuochen finally let out a breath. It seemed Dragon Marshal Temple was not as terrifying as the rumors had it. Suddenly, Zhang Yuochen saw that the garden in front had a light on, and there was also sounds of water splashing. Yellow number 1 is where I live. Did someone already claim this area? Zhang Yuochen was not happy and decided to go out and have a look. Who was it that was so arrogant? Having just walked into the garden, he could smell a light floral scent floating through the gate. Walking a few more steps, Zhang Yuochen finally saw something that would cause countless men nosebleed. In the center of the garden was a bathing pond. Petals floated on the surface of the water and a pale-skinned female sat in the bath. It was merely a view of her back, but it was so delightful as to steal away one's breath, and not a flaw could be found. Although much of her pale skin was concealed under the water, her figure was still tantalizingly visible, as was each droplet of water falling from her skin. Under the light, she was very beautiful. After seeing the woman, Zhang Yuochen's heart leapt and he realized something was amiss. Shit, they actually used this trick. Now what do I do? If I get caught, I'll definitely have both my legs broken and my eyes dug out. Although Zhang Yuochen was unusually talented and had a high cultivation, he was still at the mid-stage of the Black Realm. How could he hope to be a match for the female devil who had reached the completion of the Black Realm? They were too cruel. Zhang Yuochen stared at the back of the female in the bath and felt it seemed somehow familiar. But, at the moment, he could not think too much. He sighed silently and said, "These female devils really committed themselves to defeating me. They even took off their clothes for me to see. They would do anything to get at me." Flee. He must immediately flee. Zhang Yuochen looked around and found no one rushing out to capture him. He took one slow step back and prepared to leave without a sound or trace. "You only just came?" The female still has not turned around. Sitting in the bath, she seemed highly relaxed and was enjoying the bath. It could not be denied that her voice was very beautiful. It was like a nightingale, particularly melodic. Zhang Yuochen was startled slightly and immediately stopped his steps. Since she knows I'm here, why is she so calm? But her voice sounds so familiar. Abruptly, Zhang Yuochen's gaze became resolute. Since he was already being discovered, he would go head-to-head with her. Since she dared to lay a trap to frame him, he dared to fight with his life on the line. Zhang Yuochen began to circulate the genuine qi in his body and prepared to use the dragon and elephant prajna palm. He wanted to heavily wound her as fast as possible. Only through this way would he have a chance to escape. Of course, given Zhang Yuochen's current cultivation, it was highly difficult for him to harm the woman in the bath who was at the completion of the Black Realm. It would only be possible if she had no defenses at all and allowed him to strike her. Even if there wasn't any hope of success, Zhang Yuochen still had to try. Zhang Yuochen would not resign himself to being like Yuchi Tankang and have both his legs broken and thrown out of Dragon Marshal Temple. Beep. Zhang Yuochen stepped into his paces, exploding outwards at a speed of 38 meters per second. In a flash, he was next to the bath. The woman in the bath had no defenses. She turned her body and said, "Xingling, since you're here, why don't you say something?" The woman did not finish her sentence before seeing Zhang Yuochen's palm appear before her face. The shadow of a young man grew larger and larger in her pupils. Her expression suddenly changed, and she was about to circulate the genuine qi in her body to defend herself. However, it was too late. Elephant galloping, Zhang Yuochen's palm hit her chest, and a great explosion of power sent her flying backward. She flew out 10 meters and fell on the steps beside the bath. The woman was wearing nothing and her slim figure was flawless. Only her chest had a blood-red handprint. The woman spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed onto the ground, with her whole body shaking. Her chest felt like it was on fire and it was clear she had been heavily wounded. Even if she was a warrior of Division Profound, To be struck by Zhang Yuochen like so without any warning would at least result in heavy wounds if not death. Luckily at the last moment, she circulated her genuine qi and protected her chest. Otherwise, she would already be dead. Zhang Yuochen looked at the collapsed woman and then looked at his palm. He never thought it would be so easy to heavily wound a warrior of division profound. Of course, Zhang Yuochen did not have any pity. After all, it was the opposition who first sought to frame him, and he struck out only in self-defense. Zhang Yuochen walked towards the woman next to the bath. Seeing her naked, he felt a little sympathy for her. He removed his robe and laid it on her body to cover her figure. Zhang Yuochen said sincerely, "Although your methods are despicable, I will not take advantage of the situation." "Ah, you are Huang Yanjun." Zhang Yuochen finally saw clearly the face of the beautiful woman lying on the ground. It was Huang Yanchen whom he had seen once in the Wu Tower. Huang Yanchen heard Zhang Yuochen's words and was so angry that her whole body shook. Opening her pair of beautiful eyes, she ground her teeth, and then said with a quiver, "Be bastard, you dare to enter my residence without permission. I want to kill you." Oh. Huang Yanchen spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. Zhang Yuochen furrowed his brows. Unbelievable. Yellow number 1 is my residence. Clearly, it was her who entered without permission, and now she wants to frame me. Now she has even fainted. This woman, who does not know right and wrong, merciless in her tactics, is definitely not well-meaning. Luckily, I have injured her greatly, otherwise, I would certainly be sabotaged by her.